Hi everyone, welcome to the Chief Challenge. This is the Dawg House. It is the Dawg House in case you need to spend the night in it yourself. Let's begin by the process of looking at this. It's a two-story structure. On the second story, we've got a banister or railing style wall. We'll take a look at what we need to do there. Adjust the roof. For the ramp, there are traction strips, so we'll have to do a little added work there. An elliptical door. Then we'll wrap up the process by looking at the final materials for the selection. Let me go ahead and switch over, open up the program. Let me get the timer started. Let's begin with the wall tool. I'm going to click and drag with the wall. I like to use the tab key to enter in the coordinates, 6 feet. And then for the other wall, we'll do the same exact process. Press the tab key. In this case, we'll put in 9 feet. Then we'll connect the room. We'll slide that over till we get the extension snap, and then we get our dimensions. And to set the room height, I'm going to do that through the default settings. Let's go into the defaults, come down to floors and rooms. For the floor level for the first floor, let's come over and set the finished ceiling at 48 inches. Close the defaults, and let me pause the video for just a second. And let's talk about why I set the ceiling height in the defaults and not in the room itself. When you build a second floor, it's going to use your defaults from the main floor, in this case floor 1, and it will reset it on floor 1 when you rebuild it. And if I just open up this example that I already have in place and we look at it, in this case this room is set at 48 inches. The default is at 9 feet. If I build a second story, and we'll just use the same value we're going to use for the Dawg House here at 36 inches, it will reset that at the 48 inches to the 9 feet because it's using the default setting. The program wants to do that, and to save yourself a little time, use the default settings for your room height. It'll save you a step. So let me just close this example that we have open. We'll go back into our existing plan, and let me make sure that I start the timer back up. Timer's back on, and let's go back into the room. It is at 48 inches, hopefully. And then the only other thing I'm going to do is in the floor structure itself, we're going to set that on a slab. So let's delete that, and now we have that on a slab. Let's go in and build the second story. We'll derive it from the floor below, set the finished ceiling height at 36 inches. No ceiling over the top of it. Use soffit for the ceiling. And then for the floor structure, let's do it with a 2x4, which would be 3.5 inches. And that should be it for building that. Let's go ahead and grab all of the walls here. I'm going to open up the walls, and I'm going to mark that those are railing walls. Let's come down to the railing style. We'll choose post to ceiling, newels and balusters. The height should be 18 inches. The post should be 3.5 inches. And that should be it for now. Let's take a 3D view and see what other changes we may need to make. So here we are. Let's grab the front wall, rotate around, grab the next wall. We'll convert that to a full gable wall. If we can grab this back wall here, make that a full gable wall. And the first thing you're going to notice is the posts probably aren't going all the way up to the roof. Let's go into the build roof, make a few changes in here. On the structure panel itself, let's set the fascia height at 9.25. We'll do that also at 9.25 for both the subs, and then 11.25 for the main fascia for the gable and eave. And any other changes we need to make in here on the gutter, maybe pop that off. And I think that should be it for our roof. And let's see the way that looks. So our posts look pretty good. It looks like I didn't actually hit delete on the gutter, so on the gutter itself, let's go ahead and remove that. And according to the diagram here, it looks like we should have shadow boards. So go into the library. Let's choose a shadow board that's very basic in profile. And I'm going to set that to 5.5 inches. And I think that should be it for the roof. Now for the ramp that's going to go up the side here, I want that to come up to the top of the main floor. Let's figure out what the height of that is just by opening up the room. I'm going to copy the floor value, 53.75. And then on the floor plan, I want to draw that ramp from the main floor up. Using the ramp tool, Let's come over, pick up the snap. We'll click and drag. Let's use the temporary dimension, set that to be 2 feet. And it may show a little easier. Let's do this in a 3D view, slide over a little bit. For this ramp itself, as we open it up, the ramp width at 24 inches, uncheck automatic heights. For the top height, let's paste in that value plus 7/8 since I left the finished floor in there. And then on the options, open underneath, let's set that to maybe 5.5 inches. And let's move over to the railing panel. Let's set that at 18 inches. No railing on the left. And I believe that should be it for the railing. And the ramp, let's go ahead and click on it, bump it over. And then for the landing, we need to place. Let's zoom in, use the specific landing tool, pick up the snap over here. Pull that up and right about to the edge of the finished wall or the framing wall. And we should be in good shape for that. And as long as we're in this floor plan view, I need to support this with a couple of posts. Let's place post number 1, post number 2, post number 3. And let's just come in here and get that close. And then let's go into our elevation view. We'll clean up those posts. Click and pull that post down. We'll call that good for supporting it. Maybe slide that one over just a little bit. Now for the traction ramps, let's zoom in. I'm going to use the 3D solid tool. Let's click and drag our solid and then we'll just kind of shape that. Let's be approximate, not too exact. Pull that up and then we'll pull this one up and get it about where we want it. I'll open it up. And for the depth of it, let's set it at 24 inches. And then let's use our eyedropper, pick up the material, make sure that looks okay in the camera view. So there's our traction strip. In the elevation view, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that. I'm going to use the multiple copy tool. And let's go ahead and set that to evenly distribute at 7 copies. Hold the control key down and I'm going to pull that up. And we'll just eyeball it since I'm zoomed out quite a ways. And in the 3D view, there's our traction strips. So let's pause the video a little bit. When I did that multiple copy, I held the control key down. That overrides the angle snaps, right? And it's easy to do. Let's go ahead and press the undo button once. When I grab that and I use the multiple copy, first thing is I set the interval down here. 7 objects, and then when I move my cursor over it, at that point I hold the control key down. I'm on a PC. You can refer to our shortcuts, what it is on the Mac. I think it's the command key. And then when I hold the control key down, release the mouse, that allows me to override that angle snap, and it's easier than opening up the ramp, figuring out the rise over run, and using transform replicate. So it was just a quick way of doing that process. So let's go ahead and turn the timer back on. We've got about 6 minutes left. In the 3D view, a few things we need to do. Let's go ahead and go into the she shed. Let's grab our materials. Let's paint that in plan view so we get our materials. And then with the door tool, let's use the doorway, place the doorway. And what I want to set this doorway to be is, let's see, the width here is 36 inches in height and 24 inches in width. So let's set those dimensions. And then the next thing I want to do, let's in the casing, let's maybe remove the sill. And on the arch, few to choose from, probably should use dog-eared arch, but in this case, let's grab the Gothic arch. There's a height setting in there. We'll just go with the standard, use the center tool, pick up the center, and then we have it. And then if we go back into our floor plan view, let's open up the library for the dog. We'll place the dog resting. Let's go ahead and rotate him around so you'll be able to see him in the camera view. Go up a level, grab the dog with a pillow, place that, and I see that's on an interior level or interior accessories layer in our floor plan view. Let's make sure that layer is turned on. So let's just type in the word accessories, turn that layer on, and it's looking pretty good. We're almost done. Maybe a few last thing to make changes. Let's pick up the white color. I'm going to go into plan mode. We'll place everything as white. And then maybe finally let's do a tongue and groove on the ceiling for the roof. So if we do that in the library, let's go over to the library browser, type in tongue and groove, find the material. We'll go ahead and paint that in object mode. I have automatic roofs turns on. Let's just go ahead and change the roof material, and then let's do a 2136 style color, and we'll just find a certain color. I'm not sure that's the exact one, but let's go ahead and pull that in, and there we have the Dawg House. Slight change here. Let's do the rendering style with the line drawing on top, and close up our library browser, project browser. There's our Dawg House with traction strips up the side. That wraps up this Chief Challenge. If you participated, we hope you had a lot of fun, picked up a couple of tips, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for attending. And so with that, I hope if you guys participated, this was a fun little project. We're going to announce a winner at the end of the Q&A session, and they're going to get a Chief Gear Kit. If you happen to be the winner and you're on today's session, we'll give you the opportunity to maybe share your design tips. So with that, Carrie, do we have any questions out there?
Thanks, Scott. Janelle wrote in and she was wondering if you could review one more time why you set the ceiling height for the room using the floor defaults.
Yeah, okay, yeah, good question. So let's go into the program here, and I've got that example project that we opened up, and let's take a section view so we can kind of see what this looks like in a cross-section view. So currently, when you look at the design here, I've got a 4-foot ceiling or so, and if you go into the ceiling and you look at it, I've set the ceiling structure here, the rough ceiling at 49.5 inches. And when the program goes through and builds a second story, it wants to use the floor default. And if we look at the floor default for this plan, it's going to be probably a 9-foot ceiling. That means when you go in and you go through the process of building a second floor, the program is going to look at that default setting, and for this second floor, let's just use the 8-foot standard. You notice that on the bottom floor, it jumped up to what the default is. And it's a little bit odd because we only have a 1-room structure in this case, but the program, when it automatically builds, it uses that default setting. So to save a little bit of time in the session here, what I did in the default settings was I'd set that to control the floor height or the ceiling height. So underneath the floor levels, if you look on the first floor, here's the default ceiling. And if you simply come in here and change that to the 4-foot, then when the program builds that second floor, it will use what the default setting is. So you can have multiple ceiling heights, but when you build a second story, it's going to use whatever your default setting is. So hopefully that helps with why I use the default setting before building that second story.
Thanks, Scott. We had another write-in question. How did you set the ramp so that it lands at the top floor?
Yeah, so when you look at the ramp here, ramps typically, if they're going to meet ADA standards, might be a 1 in 12 pitch. And clearly this, this is very steep. And what I did was I looked at what the floor height was and then used that to paste it in there. And in doing that, let's just close this example here. And let's go back into that Dawg House. Open that up real quick. So if you look in the 3D view, you see that ramp comes in right at the right level. And what I did in the session here was I clicked in the room, opened it up, and you see that the floor is 52 1/4. You can kind of zoom in over the story pole diagram off to the right-hand side. So this is going to be the floor level, really probably the subfloor level, plus 7/8 for the floor finish. So that will get you right up to the top. So using that in the side of the ramp is where we pasted that value. So that number plus 7/8 gave us the top height, and it was a quick way to make sure that that exactly landed to meet that second story.
Thanks, Scott. We had a follow-up question from Courtney. She was wondering, how were you able to remove the railing to give the dog access to the second floor?
Yeah, actually, I think I probably glossed over that. Probably running tight on time. I want to make sure I got the 10 minutes. But you see how we have the opening here for the access into the ramp and landing, and that's actually a doorway. And the way you place those doorways, you can see it in the floor plan view here. If I go ahead and delete that out of there, you'll find that tool underneath the door, and there's a specific tool called the doorway. And when you place this, let's make sure that layer is maybe turned on so we can see it a little bit better. Yeah. So then all I did was slide that over, and if you press reference display, that will show you the floor below. Makes it easy to maybe size that and pull it in right where you want to have that opening. And so then when you go back into the camera view, you can see how you do that. So the doorway inside of the railing in particular for that will create that opening, and you can access the ramp.
Okay, thanks. And then what were the settings that you did for the railing wall on that upper level?
Yeah, so a couple things. If you look at this, this is a post to roof structure, so the posts go all the way up to the roof. And inside of the railing itself, if we just kind of open that up and we look at the style of the railing, you'll see that there is the option underneath the rail style, and then under newel posts, there is a post to ceiling setting. So as you kind of move through these, you can see the difference in the preview diagram, what's going to happen from the different settings. And I use the post to ceiling setting in there.
Okay, thanks. We had Jenny write in. How did you line up the rail posts on the parallel wall to be aligned?
That's a good question. If you look at the two parallel posts, we're talking about the one on the ramp side and then the one on the opposite side. And if you take an elevation view, this post right in the center should match up with the post on the ramp side. And currently, I believe the railing wall, if we look at this railing wall, we set that up. Let's go in here on the spacing, and we pretty much set a very large value of the spacing of these posts. And the way that I control that was I put a break in the wall to make sure that that post showed up right exactly. So it's easy to show you maybe that in the floor plan view. So you can see in the floor plan view, these two posts, turn on my crosshairs, these two posts are exactly in alignment. So post on the left, post on the right. You see a little line in here? That's a break, wherever you put a break. So if I go ahead and use the break tool, which is in the bottom edit menu, and let's just put a break down here. See, it creates another post, and then put another break over on this side. Use the crosshairs to line that up. And let's make sure we create that break right in here. So that'll generate another post. And so that's a easy way to make sure that you can align those. I can't simply click on that post and slide it around, so I control it with the break tool.
Thanks, Scott. When you did the traction strips, how were you able to replicate the angle of the ramp while making the copies?
Okay, yeah, you see those traction strips going up, and there's a few ways to do it. You could use the transform replicate and look at what that ramp is in pitch and figure out the rise over run and do a little bit of math on that. I again was a little bit tight on time, and it seemed to work really well. I used the multiple copy And the trick to that was to override the angle and bumping by holding down the control key on a PC, and that should be a command key on the Mac. And if we just kind of open up the floor plan, and let's just go into that elevation view. So you see the traction strips in here, and let's see if we can delete a couple of those. I'm not going to delete all of them, but what I did was once I selected the traction strip, use the multiple copy key, which is down here in my lower menu system. And I'll pause there for a minute so you can see that. And once I have it selected, then I'm going to use this setting for controlling the multiple copy interval. So that's, again, in the lower left-hand section of my screen. Once you choose that, I use the evenly distribute, and you can set the number of objects. In this case, it's 3. And then when you move your mouse over that, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to hold the control key down. And again, I'm on a PC. On a Mac, it should be the command key. And then while I'm holding the control key down, I'm going to then click on the left mouse before I let go of it. So you can see those traction strips. And it's very flexible because I'm holding that control key down. It will override that angle. Once I'm happy with it, I'll release the mouse button, and you can see those traction strips. Then use that multiple copy. And it's just kind of a quick way to position something. And that control key will override bumping and snapping for pretty much every object in the program. If you needed to slide a cabinet around through a wall, you could just hold your control key. It will override that bumping condition against a wall. So kind of a handy tool at times.
Thank you, Scott. Andrew wrote in and he noticed the story pole dimensions on your layout sheet. Can you show how that was created?
Yeah, if you look at this layout sheet in the upper left, you see the story pole with some annotations. The program has a built-in story pole dimension. You can configure that before you actually use it. So if you wanted to maybe omit, maybe in this case, you see I don't have the highest ridge or any of the roof ridges. So you can kind of modify that. And then once you place the dimensions, of course, you can completely customize it, which then I've done here in this example. If we go into a elevation view, and let's just open that up. So here's the elevation view that I've done. And if we open up a new elevation view, so let's just draw a new one here, and let's drag that in. So here we are looking at the elevation view. You can configure those settings. First of all, the automatic dimensions. I'm not sure what I have it configured now with this particular plan, but using the automatic dimension tool, then the tool on the left-hand side of my monitor is called the auto story pole dimension. And that will then come in there and place all of those dimensions. And then it's pretty easy to customize this. You can click on the dimension, and when you see a diamond, you can just simply pull that off a little ways, remove it off the ridge. And then if you want to add a dimension, let's say maybe you wanted to click on that and put it back on the roof. There's an extra diamond wherever you click typically. So you could pull that back in and position it to create that. And then once, if you wanted to configure it, you'll find that default setting. So I'll come up into my defaults here. And then underneath your dimension tools specifically, there is a setting here for your auto story pole dimensions. And in here is where you can kind of configure it. Is it on the left? Is it on the right? How far do you want it to reach across the building? What do you want it to locate? I mentioned you can maybe remove some of these things that you don't want, or you could also add and configure things you do want. And then that's how you kind of configure that for your own preferences. And then you can modify this however you want.
All right, thank you. It looks like that's all the questions I have. Did you see any other questions you wanted to cover, Scott?
Yeah, okay. Well, thanks for the questions. Hopefully, if you guys participated in the challenge here, you had some fun. And So we wanted to recognize a couple of the challengers here. One, of course, is the winner, but I also wanted to mention one of the designs that was really good. So for an honorable mention, this design was pretty fantastic from Ryan Gardner out of Washington. Agar Services did really a great job, and kind of nice textures that he ended up choosing. So you can see that pretty much everything was put together. So nice job, Ryan. Wanted to recognize and give a shout out to Ryan Gardner. And then our winner for this week, I think, has been on most all of our chief challenges here, is Zeta Greenup. And look at this job. Zeta's from Zeta's Design out of California, and really did a nice job. The rendering here looks fantastic and met all of the requirements for the McMansion Dawg House. So Zeta, I don't know if you happen to be on today's session. If you are and you're comfortable, want to give us a shout out to what your secret was, what you did in the design, maybe raise your hand and we'll unmute your microphone. Are you out there, Zeta?
I cannot believe I won.
Congratulations, Zeta.
Yeah.
Tell us about your project here.
Well, I'm a dog lover, so this was kind of
Perfect.
this was I really loved it. So this would be a perfect dog house. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. Of course, it took some time to figure out all the kind of little things and make sure that everything is included and just playing with the materials. So it was a lot of fun. Really admire you for doing these things and also coming up with these ideas. It's just really great, brilliant.
Yeah, well, great job, Zeta. We appreciate your participation. I know you've been on several of the challenges, and one of the things that we want to do is we're going to send you a Chief Gear Kit. Included in the gear kit here is actually a commemorative 30-year mug. So this is recognizing Chief Architect's 30th anniversary this year. So you'll get a nice Yeti mug, hat, pencil, and some playing cards. So we'll be sending that out to you, and really appreciate and congratulations on winning this week's Chief Challenge.
Thank you so much.
You bet. And congratulations again. Have a great day.
You too.
So just a few things with a few announcements here to make. We have a on-demand training. If you're looking for training resources that we have available, you can schedule on-demand training. We have the residential class in an intro and an intermediate, and then we also have a kitchen and bath. This is an on-demand training. There's a series of videos. You can watch them at your convenience. And it's a great way to learn and improve your skill set with Chief Architect. So you can just go to the website, sign up for that. We also have, as we look, if you're a little bit newer to the program or just want to get some of the basics and some of the tips, we have what's called the Chief Boot Camp. Again, these are organized with a residential and kitchen and bath focus. So the next one we have coming up will be this Friday for the residential boot camp. And you can sign up for that. I believe it starts around 10 p.m. Pacific time, and that will be this Friday. The following Friday is our kitchen and bath session. So it's a great way. These are free sessions. Great way to use for a learning resource with Chief Architect. We are going to be attending the International Builder and Kitchen and Bath Show, and that will be in Las Vegas this year. The show is January 31 through February 2nd. Around that show, we are doing in-class trainings, and we will be doing both the residential and kitchen and bath. These are going to be intermediate and intro. If you wanted to attend a in-person class, happy to see you in person, and hopefully see you and learn more about Chief Architect with you. So thanks everybody for attending these Chief Challenges. That kind of wraps up these sessions. Have a great day, and we will see you hopefully soon in the future.